Everyone, Celis, and this is the 13.7 patch preview, and this one is going to end up on the FlyQuest channel, and it's just mainly an announcement thing that going forward, all of the patch rundowns will still be on the FlyQuest channel, but the patch previews will continue being on my main channel now, moved over from the highlights channel where they originally were. Sometimes for really big patch previews, I did end up putting them on my main channel, you guys know, but going forward, this is just mainly an introductory. This one's on the FlyQuest channel. All future patch rundowns will be on the FlyQuest channel as well. Patch previews be on the main LSXYZ9 YouTube channel. So let's get straight into it because the current patch is really sad. And it was a couple of days ago that I believe that Riot said that the MSI patch is actually 2 patches away, so it's not 13.6. So we can talk about a couple of things going on. Armor is, all right, so let's talk about this. So Azir, armor 19 to 22, attack speed growth 5% to 6%, skill recommender, Qmax is to Wmax, passive duration 30 to 45 seconds, passive summon range 500 to 700, Q mana cost 65 to 85, 70 to 110, Q stab range 370 to 325, okay? W mana cost 40 to 40 to 20, and then W mana per damage per rank 50 to 90 to 50 to 118, W total damage 50 to 200, 50 to 210. So it really does seem like they're trying to change Azir's playstyle, and they're trying to change the way that Azir functions inside of the game. I think that these changes are, I mean, they're interesting, and if Azir does end up going the Nashor stuff, I think that his mid and late game is potentially going to be stronger than it is, but I guess what will end up happening is that his lane oppressiveness is not going to be as severe, and so you will get a scaling battle with the Azir. But Azir is definitely a difficult champion for Riot to try to tackle in general. All of these changes are shifting him to a former version of Azir that we all used to know with the Nashor's Tooth and stuff, so I imagine that's what is going on here. Katarina, passive dagger AP ratio 65 to 95 to 70 to 100%. R Death Lotus bonus AD ratio 18% bonus AD plus 30% bonus AD per 100% to 16% bonus AD plus 50% bonus AD per 100% bonus attack speed. Okay, so the Katarina changes are very weird. I know that Cat Evolved ended up writing below one of the writer's tweets. I think listening to Cat Evolve and the comments that, you know, he is going to give on Katarina is probably the best that most people can do about Katarina. I don't think that there is a more popular Katarina content creation channel anywhere than Cat Evolve's, you know, various mediums in which he produces content on Katarina. Cat Evolved multiple instances of extremely high MMR, even inside of Korea. I think he's even coming back to Korea very soon. And I think that, you know, he plays every single variation of Katarina. So there's probably no one better to actually look at for baseline explanations on things going on with Katarina than to just, you know, go and see what he says. Kalista, attack damage growth 3.5 to 3.75. Oathsworn Bond Ceremony shortened by 4 seconds. So attack damage growth is going up by 0.25, but remember, Kalista has a modifier on her AD in general. So while the 0.25 is going up, it's not exactly 0.25. It's slightly less than that. Oathsworn Bond Ceremony, I mean, shortened by 4 seconds. I mean, this doesn't really matter. I mean, these are both placebo buffs. Graves, crit bonus, 20% to 30%. R cooldown, 120-60 to 100-60. This is actually really big for Jungle Graves, just in general. Right now, Jungle Graves, I mean, with some of the crit items that he can build, this is helpful to a certain extent. The R cooldown going down by 20 seconds is actually a pretty big deal because having 20 seconds on Jungle Graves is pretty big for just creating ganks and the reach that his R obviously has. So it's a nice little buff for Graves. Is it going to change his presence in pro play? Absolutely not. No, that's not going to happen. Alistar, armor 44 to 47, base health 670 to 685. So all of this combined is getting like an extra auto inside of lane. Passive, okay, now Yasuo. Passive shield 100 to 475 to 100 to 575. Heavily backloaded. E-sweeping blade damage, amp 25% base damage per stack up to 2 stacks, plus 15 to 25% total damage per stack, scaling with champion level up to 4 stacks. So I don't understand. So the heavily backloaded means that Yasuo gets more scaling, which is still kind of nuts. He's getting a free 100 shield. And, you know, Yasuo's, especially at the higher MMRs, they can cast 2 shields inside of a team fight. So it's that's a lot of extra HP that he's just getting for free. E-sweeping blade damage amp is also pretty nuts. I don't understand why Yasuo is actually getting buffs. Yasuo is unfortunately one of those champions that he is in a pretty good spot, but you have to be really, really, really good to be able to play Yasuo, which most people aren't able to play Yasuo. And so that is where some of the issues end up lying with that champion. But, I mean, that's it for buffs, and that's really, really, really sad. We are still 2 patches away from MSI. Now, what I think that means is that it's 13.8 is going to be the MSI patch, but if these are the only types of buffs that we're getting, then the meta is going to be very, very stale, unless, like, these nerfs have a lot. Ramus. W% bonus armor, 40 to 100 to 40 to 80. That is a very big nerf to Ramus. Losing 20% armor is a really big deal, considering how much he ends up getting, especially because some of his items have been nerfed. So this just feels really bad. I assume that this is targeted at lower MMR, or like mid MMR, or whatever. Veigar QAP ratio, 60% to 45 to 65%. Now, this is his first max stability, right? He puts 2 points in W, and then he maxes E second. So I actually think this is a welcome change. It makes some of his laning phase a little bit weaker, but if you guys saw Veigar V2's tweets about it, if you watch a lot of pro play right now, Veigar is getting away with murder in a lot of laning phases, especially in the early parts of the lane versus pro players. People are just not laning very well against Veigar, and he's getting to do a lot more things that he shouldn't be able to do. WAP ratio 100% to 70 to 110%. So they are making it so now W is his last max ability, but he does put 2 points into it. Now, I don't know if the 2 points into it is still going to end up remaining constant right now. And I say that because obviously losing the AP ratio on it is going to cause this to go down by 20%. So I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't put points into W anymore until later stages of the game. He might not need to now with the increase to Q. I'm not totally sure. I'm not exactly familiar with Veigar's exact lethal thresholds on minions and stuff off the top of my head. This does seem like a fine change. Now he doesn't get this until level 18. Veigar, being a Rod of Ages champion, does it at 18. Much quicker than some other people in the game, but still. RAP ratio 75% to 65 to 75%. So they're also nerfing his lethals on his R. Now, his R is generally overkilling in a lot of instances. Yes, sometimes people do get it exact, but I don't think these are bad nerfs at all. In fact, I would actually say these are buffs to Veigar with how he's currently being played in competitive. I don't think that these are nerfs. I think that this is laning phase, so he'll be a little bit weaker. He'll have a little bit less stacks, but the 5% will quickly be way more beneficial, as will the 10% on the W. So I think all in all, Veigar is actually getting buffed here. Olaf, passive attack speed 60 to 100% to 50 to 100%. Q cooldown, Q damage, sorry. So his attack speed's being nerfed, and the Q damage 70 to 270 to 65 to 265. Pretty negligible. He's still going to be picked in the exact same spots that you want. Passive elite, monster damage cap 300 to 250. Q cooldown 18 to 12 to 19 to 13. R cooldown 120 to 80 to 130 to 90. He's still going to be picked in all of the same spots that you would pick him. These changes are definitely a nerf to him, but in good Olaf matchups, they're not going to be enough to sway the difference, and Olaf is still going to be advantaged. So, okay. I don't understand what the Sejuani... Oh, I just read the Sejuani, and oh my lord. Passive elite monster damage cap 300 to 250. Q cooldown 18 to... Oh, so Olaf's changes are completely negligible. Even... Okay, I completely... Okay, wow. I thought his Q cooldown was being increased by... Okay, geez, all right. Oh, the Sejuani changes do not matter at all. They're being very, very, very safe with her nerfs. And, I mean, this probably means that she's still going to be played at MSI. All right, let's take a look at Vi. Oh, the Vi changes are in the next tab. Okay, so that's why they're missing. Wukong. Passive AD 68 to 66. W cooldown 22 to 12 to 22 to 14. Again, I just don't think this matters that much. E bonus attack speed 40 to 60% to 35 to 55%. Wukong is still going to be picked, unfortunately. I mean, these changes would not prevent you from picking Wukong if you're playing him right now, because the amount of times in pro play or high MMR that these changes are going to have any sort of transformation over what would have happened is completely non-existent, or it's going to be so rare. Lee Sin, base 80, 68 to 66, base armor 36 to 34. Minor nerfs to Lee Sin, but again, I mean, it was minor. It was a super irrelevant, negligent buff that caused him to get picked again, so now maybe people see this and overreact as well. Zeri, HP growth, 115 to 110. Okay, so she's losing 5 HP per level. I mean, that's it's something, right? Passive, shield steal 60% to 50%, super minor. RAD ratio 100% to 85%. These are indeed Zeri nerfs. Annie, E cooldown 12 to 8 seconds to 12 to 10 seconds. This is obviously hitting the Emax Annie second, or the Emax Annie builds on support. And so for mid lane Annie, this is not going to be that big of a deal unless you end up doing the LCK or the Korean version of Annie, which is Emax second. Whereas obviously Annie's support is Emax first. E-base shield 60 to 220 to 60 to 200. Very negligible. Annie is still going to be picked in all of the spots that she's still getting picked in. So it does not really matter that much. Thresh, Q cooldown refund on hit. 3 seconds to 2 seconds. So his Hook City is still going to be a thing, but it's not going to be as disgustingly chainable. So, I mean, that's the way that you should look at Thresh, but I don't think that Thresh is actually in a position to really be picked right now in the meta. Anyway, if you guys have been watching a lot of the Draft Kingdoms on any of my YouTube channels. Kha'Zix, isolation range 425 to 375. W evolve slow 60 to 4%. There's no possible way that I can ever make sense of these Kha'Zix changes. This champion is so completely unplayable in competitive right now. And even in high MMR, I mean, he's heavily reliant on the aspect of solo queue. All the other changes just feel so bad for him that have happened over preseason, changes to itemization, etc. I know there's a couple of high MMR Kha'Zix players that do play, but I mean, the same can be said for any champion, regardless of their state. It's laughable that he's being nerfed instead of actually buffed. This is just super, super, super weird, man. I have no idea what to make of this. This is just so gross. How is this an adjustment? It's a nerf. It's just outright a nerf. I don't understand. Like, what? Is the argument that the isolation range being smaller is a I don't even know. System buffs, Abyssal Mask 500 to 550 still does not matter. Death Stance AD is going to be down by 10, haste up by 15, armor 50 to 45, build path reverted. Okay, so getting the haste back I think is beneficial for Death Stance users. I think that they would want the haste over the AD. So I think in that regard it is a buff. All right, Grievous Wounds. Oblivion Orb, Morello, Chemtech, Putrefier, Executioner's Call, and Mortal Reminder, Chempunch now applies Grievous Wounds to targets that completely block the damage with shields. Invulnerable targets are still exempt. Doesn't matter. Grievous Wounds is still a completely failed... I mean, it's just not worth building unless you have a lot of synergy in your kit or the opponents have a lot of healing. Generally, you know, you have to really just be the utility champion to purchase this inside of a game, or you have to have like Leandries, etc. The Morella and Omicron change that they did a couple of patches ago, giving it the M-Pen and stuff, definitely made it a lot better. But yeah, I mean, that's how it goes. Catalyst of Aeons, total gold cost 1100 to 13, health 225 to 300, total cost of Rod of Ages and Abyssal Mask unchanged. This is actually a big deal. This is the 200 gold nerf is really big. That is 2 minion waves. You have to stay in lane an entire extra minute, and all that you do is get rewarded 75 extra HP. That's a really big deal to a lot of Catalyst of Aeons. And what this ends up doing is a lot of Catalyst of Aeon users versus Lost Chapter users, because their item is 2 minion waves sooner, they're able to play the lane and teleport back or come back to the lane while the Lost Chapter user is still locked into lane. Now with these changes, the Lost Chapter users actually get a really big buff at playing against it, and this is going to be a really big deal for champions that rely heavily on base damage in order to carry them through laning phase and just using the durability and, you know, the Eternity passive and everything by Catalyst of Aeons to carry them through lane. So this is a really big buff for Lost Chapter users and a pretty big nerf to all the Rod of Ages users that try to use this to, you know, alter their laning phase and just make it a lot better. So that's a pretty big nerf. Now, in terms of competitive, is there anything that we're going to see here? The only thing that I think that we could see is that pro players overreact to the Lee Sin and the Wukong change and maybe both stop getting picked because, you know, they don't open up calculators, and apparently they don't have anyone on the teams that open up calculators and explain to them what the buffs and nerfs actually mean. Or, you know, maybe they overreact to Zeri. They say that she's unplayable or something. Now, remember, it was the Jinx HP nerf last spring that ended up making Jinx not played for an entire year because everyone's like, you can't get out of laning phase with her anymore. The HP, it's too much. And, you know, now lo and behold, Jinx is being played again. And, you know, because, again, we as a community overreact to what the changes actually mean. Some people will often reference win rates and stuff. They'll look at, 13.7 as soon as it drops. They'll look at it a week after, 2 weeks after, etc. They'll be like, oh, wow, 1% win rate increase, 1% win rate decrease. And one of the things that I think is really interesting, and again, I was tracking this last year, and then I never ended up actually doing it. Should probably do it again this year, is track the passive win rate and just the passive win rate of every single champion in the game, and watch the fluctuations patch to patch before you were 100% saying that the changes exactly are what goes into a lot of things that is happening, because I think that is a very interesting thing to go and look at, because a lot of these things are placebo nerfs and they are placebo buffs, and the amount of games that you would have to play to find instances where the nerf or the buff, especially at high MMR and pro play, actually translates to a change is so, it's something else. Now, okay, let's take a look at Vi. Q damage, 110 to 310 plus 140% base AD, to 90 to 290 plus 160% bonus AD. So 20% bonus AD is needed, so you have to make up the extra 200. So Vi these days does build Black Cleaver. She does build Sunderer. And then after that, maybe she'll build like Death Stance or Guardian Angel. So she is going to build bonus AD. It's not until I think way later in the game this ends up being a buff. E damage 10 to 90 plus 100%, 110% AD. I didn't even know this thing had an AP ratio. Plus 90% AP to 0 to 60 plus 120%. So you need to have over 300 AD now in order for this to be break even. Plus 100% AP, but obviously she doesn't get AP. Now, she is stronger with Baron, right? She gets 10%. And so, I mean, you get 40 something AP, right? When you have Baron, so you get 4 there. And now with Baron and again later in the game. So this is mid-late game buffs to Vi, but it is nerfs to her early on. Now again, a lot of the really strong junglers right now aren't even being played. Udyr is never being picked. He went the entire spring split, only being picked once by G2, and ended up losing with it. And it was actually a really poor showing on Udyr. So it was very, very, very sad. I think that was winter split, right? It was G2 versus, I want to say it was Vitality, right? And I think that it was a very poor showing by the Udyr. Went completely unpicked. We know that he was getting played a lot in scrims. We know there's a lot of high MMR Udyr players right now. He's non-existent. One of the best champions in the game. Another champion would obviously be Hecarim right now, not really getting picked anywhere. Ivern is one of the best junglers in the game with all the changes right now. No one's playing Ivern either. Fiddlesticks doesn't really need any introduction, especially after the new Fiddlesticks clear ended up also being found, where you can continue to do the double camp and stuff like that. Morgana, completely unpicked, even though nothing's happened and all the changes end up benefiting her a lot more. It's just a really sad state of affairs. So again, unless the MSI patch ends up bringing us something really good, the meta is going to be pretty much identical to everything that we've been getting the past few weeks, and I think that's really sad. So that is pretty much it. We'll see what officially does make the cut when we end up uploading the patch rundown here at the same FlyQuest LOL YouTube channel. And, sometimes Riot reverts things, they take things out, they add things, etc. Nothing on Milio yet. Milio, I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. I realized that one of my last live viewings and co-streams, a lot of the YouTube comments were saying that I was mispronouncing it, but I pronounce it both ways, so I don't know which one they're referring to. I will find that out probably later, and we'll have to see. Nothing really special in this patch rundown, so that is it. Don't forget to subscribe to the FlyQuest YouTube channel here, and you can expect all the previews to resume on my main channel now going forward, and all the patch rundowns to be here on FlyQuest, so the final versions will be here. That is pretty much it, and I will see you guys in the next one, so see you all later. Bye-bye.